How's it going, everyone? Mark Green here from diabetesdietguide.com and markgreennutrition.co.uk, and I'm here to tell you the one thing that you need to completely understand in order to improve your glucose control in type 2 diabetes. Cue the intro. Still no intro? Yes, that's right. In order to fix something, you first need to understand why it's broken in the first place. So I wanted to do this very quick explainer video to help you realise what's going on inside your body and then the steps that you can start to make in order to address it. In order to do that though, we need to get animated. It all starts with a tiny organ called the pancreas. It's 6 inches long and it sits below the stomach and just on top of the bowel. This has two major functions. The first, and its primary function, is to do with digestion, where it releases enzymes into the system to help digest our food. The second, and a much smaller percentage of what it does, is to release hormones, which is to do with controlling our blood glucose levels. You may have heard of them. They're called insulin and glucagon. Now when you eat, your body's actually very clever. What it starts to do is it recognises food is entering the system. And it starts to make a response in relation to that. And this response, if there's carbohydrate containing foods, like in this apple here, with its natural sugars, will be to release insulin to store that carbohydrate or use it for energy. Now insulin is the one that we're concerned with today. When we eat, particularly carbohydrate containing foods, food travels down the esophagus, hits the stomach and then subsequently the bowel, and this sends a message to the pancreas to release insulin. This is then released to the rest of the body to exert its influence. One of the major organs that this has an impact on is the liver. Usually, particularly during periods of fasting, the liver releases glucose to give us an internal supply of energy. But when insulin reaches the liver, it tells it to switch that off because food is now in the system and will do that function for it. It also acts on the rest of the body, so things like the kidneys and the muscle cells and the brain, to allow glucose to get in and act as fuel. And a good way of thinking about this is thinking of insulin like a key and the cells of the body like locks. And usually the key enters the lock, opens it up, which allows glucose to bypass those cells and enter them to create energy. Now the problem is, in type 2 diabetes, this system becomes slightly broken. And the reason is, fat starts to clog up these locks, so the keys don't fit. So returning to our example, this time, fat clogs up the cells so the key doesn't fit, so we can't open up the lock, which means glucose can't get into the cell, meaning that rather than entering it to produce energy, instead we get an increase in glucose levels in the blood because it cannot leave the blood. The longer you leave the diabetes and the more severe it is, the less keys will fit the locks, and therefore glucose levels will rise higher. And we have a very particular name for this, and you may have heard of it. We call it insulin resistance. Usually, the big question on everyone's lips is, what can you do about this? And generally you have 4 options. So let's take a look at them. Option 1, we can add some medication into the equation. And there's lots of different types and each acts in its own way to help your body control your glucose levels. Now the longer you leave your diabetes, the more chance this will be the route you have to go down. But there are other ways, and here's what we're going to talk about. So option 2, you can reduce the amount of carbohydrate and therefore glucose that you're eating. This will then reduce the amount of external glucose that's entering the system, which will lower your glucose levels on the whole. And option 3, which is my preferred option, is addressing the underlying issue in the first place. So you might remember from our example earlier, fat clogs up the cells. So if we can get rid of the fat, the keys will start to fit the locks again, and therefore you'll be able to use your glucose once again. And the way we can do this is quite simple. It comes back to eating healthy, losing weight, and being as active as possible. And option 4 is we can do a combination of all of these. And there you have it. a quick video to help you understand what's actually happening in your body. Often patients I encounter don't quite appreciate what the pathophysiology or what the cause of the type 2 diabetes is. Once you understand that, you can then start taking steps to address it. If you found this video useful, don't forget to subscribe by pushing the button below, or check out my blog, diabetesdietguide.com. And I've also got a Facebook page where we have a nice little community going. That's facebook.com/diabetesdietguide. And if you enjoy these videos, I'll be publishing more, so come along for the ride, and we will see you soon.